Steve Hoskinson. It's great to have you here on Leading with Body Intelligence. Would you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Jennifer, I'm so grateful to be here with you and your listeners, and it's just such a lovely opportunity to talk about probably the topic you and I both love to share about body intelligence for sure. And so I am the founder of Organic Intelligence, which is really a training and educational organization, and we do training for coaches. We offer a coaching certification. But I've been training and teaching in the somatic world and trauma and somatics for 25 years or so, but also clinically trained. So studied in clinical psychology. So I really enjoy the intersection of the science and the clinical approach, the understanding of somatics, but also the contemplative arena as well. So really the way that all of this comes together around questions of meaning and values and what's important and notions of generosity and some kind of compassionate foundation in our work. So I know all of those are resonant with you, and just grateful to have the chance to share together. So thank you.
Oh, yes, they are resonant with me, and I am grateful to have you here and have this time with you and be able to share your expertise with our listeners. And you've been at this, you said 25 years?
Yep, yep. I
So,
did one of my early trainings around the time that my first child was born in 1998. He was born in 99, but I was in New York in 98.
yeah, awesome. How do you see the work that you're doing integrating with the workplace today?
Mhm. Well, the one of the your approach is called somatic intelligence, and you're really calling on this intelligence that is woven into and really it's the very fabric of our being, which is fundamentally as physical persons. And we talk sometimes around the in the Western culture, and especially after Descartes, I think therefore I am, but it's as if the body is the head taxi, taxiing the head around, and instead to have a truly integrative approach where there is the notion of living in the web of this embodiment, non-separate, where self and self-concept and where thought is co-equal to what the other channels of our experience, and co-equal to emotion, co-equal to cognition, co-equal to sensation awareness and even image awareness. And so all of these really go together in a fundamental whole. And in our more extractive days here in the colonial West, we're kind of used to taking out one aspect and going, "Hey, this," and there are just periods of fads in which we go, "Oh, hey, it's the emotions that are so important," or "Oh, it's the cognitions that are so important," or "It's the focused on behavior that's so important," and instead to really see it as a whole is a great contribution, and that the foundation of all of this, of course, is this biological being, this biological system that we have, and one of the portals into that is, of course, through sensation awareness.
And how do we make that accessible to leaders?
Well, there's how to make it accessible, I think, and I'm interested to share a little bit about that as well. There is the why, and
Mhm.
in organic intelligence, we have a particular concern that it be introduced by professionals such as yourself in a way that's truly safe, because in our systems view, we have really the recognition that we come out of this foundation of the biology, but it's represented in aspects like, we call the isoma, which stands for image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. So all of these aspects then are representations of the underlying biology. And treatment and therapy in the past has really looked at trying to uncover, past history, past events, past traumas, past attachment scenarios, past ACEs scenarios, all of the traumas, basically, in high intensity events. And we really think that it's the high intensity that challenges systems. And so in our approach, we're thinking about ways to work that do not challenge a system with too much intensity. And
Mhm.
so it's important, whichever facet of the organism that we're going to bring, whether it's emotional, cognitive, or the sensate, that it be done in a way that is informative and not overly informative. That is, the packaging, if it comes in intensity, that's problematic for a system. And so for a coach, a leader, to understand that the organization is all about managing input, throughput, output, that bandwidth, then the tools have to be gated in a certain way so that it does not challenge the stability of the functioning of the system. And so we offer ideas like orientation, like beginning on really basic and easy exercises that help the system stabilize, that bring the system into greater awareness, but without the efforting of, say, self-consciousness, or even the efforting of sensation awareness, or the efforting of focusing attention in any way at all. And so we're just really allowing the biology to explore through its senses, which is one of the most natural things. And in that, it's not a challenge to the system. It decreases intensity. And when that system then settles and it relaxes, then sensation awareness often appears in the midst of that. So we're really taking the systems perspective that creates the container then that is safe, durable, resilient for then everything else to be experienced in. And if you think about it, that's good organizational leadership as well. You're creating that container then in which the functions of business can occur.
Yeah, because people learn, perform, develop at their best when they feel safe.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And we are proposing then that that safety is really based in something that's paradoxical, because we usually think, oh, okay, I've got to do something to create safety. Okay, I've got to focus on safety. I've got to think safe thoughts. I've got to feel okay where I feel okay in the body, and all of that doing has a cost. And so from this perspective, that is a systems perspective, something that would be familiar to your organizational folks, is that it is really managing the energy budget of, say, the organization, input versus output, resources versus work to be done. And that's true in the biology as well. And so the tools that we propose first and foremost are those tools that don't require such cost. So it's costly to expend effort. So if I have to pay attention to something that feels good, that might be worthwhile. It may be producing a good product, but it takes some kind of effort. Where we begin is in recharging the system and rebalancing the system by, by tools that don't have a big cost. So one of the first exercises we would do is to say, oh, what if we just let the eyes go where they want to go? And then we let the eyes go where they want to go. And they're just, I'm not trying to look, I'm not trying to see, I'm just allowing things to happen effortlessly.
Yeah.
And what people find is there is often this relaxation, and there is this settling, and there is this ease, because this neuroscience has clearly now telling us that the main job of the brain isn't to keep balance or to keep the things, sort of the same, homeostasis, but is in fact making micro predictions. The brain
Mhm.
is the predicting brain. So it is creating models of how things are, and then it is bringing in information from the outside that then allows the brain to get us ready for what's coming. So that's a massive advantage, like preparation, readiness, and being proactive. The brain wants to be proactive. And so if we just send the attention outside, we are assisting the brain in its assessment of like, oh, how is the outside environment? And what do I need to do to prepare the organism then to receive and meet that environmental demand well? And that's what we call orientation. And that's why it's so little cost to the system, because it's what the brain is wanting to be doing. And it's counterintuitive because mostly, in therapy and mindfulness and so on, we're told to pay attention. So you're paying something, it's a cost. But
Mhm.
this has very low cost, very great reward, and it will recharge the system and get people used to functioning on the basis of low energy expenditure. So that's a much longer answer to a really great simple question.
That was a great answer and really emphasizes the value of ROI
Mm.
when it comes to managing energy. And I teach a, similar practice, as I call it seeing and sensing, but essentially it's the same thing of letting the eyes scan the room, fall on something pleasing, and then the body relaxes. I also teach leaders how to first, because I have a 3N model: notice, name, navigate. And it
Mhm.
starts with noticing. So noticing those physical sensations that the body is on alert about something, but
Mhm.
where in the workplace, we meet things as many of the things that we meet are perceived threats versus real threats.
Yeah.
Being able to notice in the body when the body is getting ready for, a threat, but being able to use that 6 seconds to either use seeing and sensing to calm the nervous system down, or another question that I find works well for people is to ask themselves, is this unsafe or just uncomfortable? People have found value in that with giving presentations because
Mhm.
it's easy to look out into a crowd. The body can interpret that crowd as saber-toothed tigers. But if you notice, whatever's happening on the inside and you can intervene, that can keep a person connected with their rational and logical thought so that they can deliver that presentation. Likewise, in the workplace, there's a lot of efforting that goes on amongst leaders feeling like they have to be the problem solvers. So I teach them how to notice when they're listening to fix,
Mm.
and noticing that impulse so that they can feel their feet on the ground, use seeing and sensing whatever they need to do to bring themselves back into the present, listen to validate first. It's
Mm.
different than listening to fix because you can't
Right.
listen to fix and validate at the same time. And
You've
then
you've been in
it
relationship with a man, I see.
then it creates that container of safety and engages and empowers the other person with their own creativity. And then the leader can be there to help if that's what the person wants. Sometimes people just want to vent. They're not
Right.
necessarily looking for the leader to solve their problem for them.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
you end up expending a whole lot of energy.
Yeah, in the tug of war between I just want to be heard and hey, here's I've got the solution for you and just ships passing in the night, you know? Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, that's great. I love how you're offering these tools of attention. I think it's worth noting that attention and the ability to direct attention is really the major tool and really is what can be transformative or just keep the SOS going, the same old stuff, the status quo going. So and
Mhm.
so attention seems to be really key. But also I hear just such like care and compassion and kindness in what you're saying. Like there is this real concern for people's well-being in the workplace, and that goes for management and everybody. So yeah, to find and access everyone's well-wishing for one another, what a lovely modeling also that is. So yeah, I'm really appreciating what you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I was just on a call prior where we were talking about the learning environment and for training and development people, what is the barrier to people learning? And fear is a big barrier.
Isn't it?
And
Yeah.
fear can show up in a lot of different ways. I'm fearful that I don't have the time to devote to this. I'm fearful that I could get judged for this.
Right.
And it
Right.
creates such a negative ROI because then you don't have that transfer of knowledge. And the organization is not receiving the value that a culture of learning
Mhm.
really can offer.
That's right. And those fears really may or may not be truly inaccurately related to the environment.
Right.
There is what we know as the adverse childhood experiences study, and that
Mm-hmm.
showed how early childhood experience has this massive lifelong and disorganizing effect on the biology, and that shows up certainly as psychological issues, depression, but also as physiological issues like in early mortality, diabetes, other physical health issues. And so that early experience creates, we now know, a model. It creates a, a kind of mindset of how the world is going to be for me. And then my system begins to adapt and be ready for that. And so we go into the workplace, and this model of the world expects that to be the same, expects there to be criticism or the threat of violence or neglect or it
Mhm.
expects all those things and then selects the information that confirms that model. And so we really like orientation, as just the getting the connection to the environment through the senses so that that there can be real and new information coming back that begins to help the biology remap or remodel its model so that it's
Mhm.
expecting more of the neutral to supportive information coming instead of what it was raised with. So attention that you're describing is really key for that, being able to know like, oh, am I having this fear? Is it actually reality based? And most of the time when people just take a moment and just let their eyes go around the room to notice, they find that that sense of alarm begins to come down, and then maybe a conversation can be had. And yeah,
Mhm.
it
Yeah, a much
go ahead.
more productive conversation, those crucial conversations that
Yeah.
we hear, needing to take place in the workplace. And I can imagine for, people listening to this podcast that some of this information, it might be very new to them. And therefore, it might feel a little overwhelming. So if we have a a leader listening to this, what would be a best next step for them in your opinion, Steve, to learn more about this and bring this in to their workplace and to their teams?
It's that interior model that people have, and in psychology we would call that, an introject, or we would call it sort of in neuroscience we'd call it just sort of the internal model, and that gets shaped very early on, and the thing about the model is that it sends out signals into the environment, and it begins to highlight and even reinforce in the environment the behaviors it's expecting. So if it's expecting somebody to be like hostile, the
Mhm.
behavior that they do is uniquely evocative of, say, irritation. So your leader may find themselves becoming irritated weirdly. It's like, why would I be irritated? They're just
Yes.
they're just telling me this, but there is an undercurrent of irritation, and in a sense that may be the model then that is evoking non-consciously that reaction in the
Mhm.
outside world, and that just confirms, oh, see, they're out to get me, see, it is a negative place, see, it's a hostile work environment, and it reinforces that. So the thing that I would suggest is to practice, um, just to practice seeing the person in whatever way in their wholeness, seeing the person as whole and complete, and
Mhm.
anything else is going to be a distraction, and you become interested then in having that dialogue around their well-being, and where you then become compassionate about their pain and not fixing. And so that would be one thing, and I think that shift would be helpful. It's often very difficult, and it's really a humanitarian effort. And but in
Mhm.
the long run, it is absolutely in the best interests of the organization to really see their clients, see their workers as whole human beings,
Yes.
and that shift can counteract, I believe, the pervasive signaling of workers and others, anybody, that is the signaling of the distortion around about life that they learned non-consciously early on. I think that's
Yeah, that's good. That fits in with what I refer to as co-regulation.
Mhm.
Think that that's signaling. And then also why I encourage leaders to really lead with curiosity. We have to feel safe or safe enough before we can ever be curious. We can't be judgmental and curious at the same time. People will feel that.
Mhm.
And if we can lead with curiosity, we create the container of safety where real change
Mhm.
can happen.
Oh, that's so lovely. What if we could really meet each other in this realm of curiosity and interest, and that really creates this learning environment that you spoke of. I think that's really brilliant. Yeah.
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 Well, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise here today. How can our listeners stay in touch and with you and follow your work?
Well, we're Organic Intelligence. So you could just Google that or Google my name, and you'll find your way to our website. And we have a ton of free offerings and professional development programs for personal resiliency as well. So a whole host of offerings that we are founded really on the principles that we've been describing here, namely compassion and seeing the wholeness of a system, and in that reinforcing that wholeness. So thank you. And also, thank you for your amazing work and good support. People are working, they're in the workplace. And so if we're going to
Yeah.
be supporting people, one of the places that we start is right there. So thank you
Absolutely.
for your wisdom in
All
that.
right. Steve Hoskinson, thank you so much.